Okay, everyone, welcome to the show, and we are going to cover wealth preservation. We're going to look at today and really preserving that wealth that possibly you've spent a lot of time building and thinking about how it's going to play out for you in the future and how it's going to help you in the future. How do you preserve that? There's obviously ways and means, and we're going to talk through that today and look at a few different things, how factors that might affect your wealth throughout the years, and things like inflation and tax, and different factors that will have a profound impact on how your wealth is accumulated and how you build that. So, I mean, I think, Jim, when you've worked hard, I mean, I know you have for a lot of years, and anybody that's watching, if they've worked hard to invest carefully and build wealth, you obviously want to look after it.
I don't think anybody else outside of being a landlord actually thinks we work hard at all. According to Keir Starmer, we do nothing.
Yeah, well, that's true.
If that's the case, then if a self-managed landlord does nothing, that means you're telling us that every single letting agent does nothing either.
Yeah, because according to them, self-managed landlords, that's not a job. But then,
yeah, so a letting agent isn't a job either. So property management isn't a job either, if that's the case, because it's exactly the same thing, except it's a business that runs on behalf of looking after it. So he's got his facts wrong. He's an idiot.
Yeah.
I think everybody's decided he's an idiot.
Yeah, I think. I mean, the bad press he's getting at the moment for things that he's putting out there. He isn't getting the best reputation at the moment.
It's quite interesting. I put on, I think it was Adam Lawrence actually posted something the other day about, what you do, are you offloading, are you buying more or whatever, or what you doing to preserve. And I says something to the effect that I'm preserving. I'm actually, our family legacy fund is pretty straightforward now. And we've now become draconian about our attitude towards the whole letting procedures. It's like we've got no leeway. We're no in business to do leeway anymore. We're no registered charity anymore. We're not doing anything like that anymore because the government's playing that game. So we're going to play the game with them.
Mm-hmm.
If that's the case, if they're wanting to be like that, we're going to be like that as well. So we've got zero tolerance. That's it. We're done. If you're going to rent arrears, we're serving notice, and we're just following it right through. There's no reprieve, nothing like that. We're just doing it, and that's because I mean they've kind of forced most investors and most property investors into a corner by legislation.
Backed into a corner in situations.
It's backed in a corner by everything. You're wanting to tax people on dividends. You're wanting to tax people on their employment. You're wanting to tax people on just for having wealth. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, but how do you think they got the wealth in the first place? They didn't piss everything up against the wall.
Yeah, I mean
that's how they got wealth in that's how anybody got wealth in the first place. Why did you get a big house? Well, you worked for it, you saved money for it, you took the risk, you got a mortgage and everything like that, and it's like, okay, we'll do a wealth tax on you then. Sorry? Because I saved. You're going to tax me for it now.
For being able to save and being quite savvy with what you're doing and building.
We're having to go at the people that have spent all their money.
Yeah. The people that have actually done something, yeah.
Oh, sorry. We're the ones that are paying for them. I mean, I'm being facetious a bit and saying these things, but I just it needs to be said. There needs to be a balanced debate. There can't just be a seesaw here. At one side gets all the say, and the other side just has to remain quiet. It's like, no, let's balance this up a bit, and let the people that have built wealth over time actually have their say and say, why should I have to pay more? Do you not think I pay enough? I mean, I paid a capital gains tax bill of £178,000 in tax. And then I've got my company tax, and then I've got my other company tax, and then I've got my other company tax. And I think my tax bill is over £200,000 to £300,000 just for 1 year.
Yeah.
Sorry, what does everybody else pay? Aye, exactly. I think that's about 100th of that. Is it no? Is it no like 3,000? 3,000 divided by 300,000 equals 1%. So they pay 1% of what I'm paying.
Yeah.
See what happens when you get rid of wealthy people, though, when they leave the country. Look how many people would have to pay to replace that person just to spin wheels in wealth preservation. Because it's like, okay, I'm off. I'll sell everything up. I'll take everything and I'll go. I'm no longer got any obligations to you anymore as a country because I don't pay tax in this country anymore because all my wealth is now taken and it's gone somewhere else. And I'm going to spend it somewhere else as well. Isn't that the most stupid policy that a government would try to pursue? To force people that are wealthy out of a country, especially if they're paying 300 grand or more a year in taxes.
I was just going to say, it takes their money elsewhere. Yeah,
even people paying, I don't know, 15 grand a year in tax, for example. That's 20 people need to replace me.
Yeah.
Just to stay where you are.
Yeah.
So I don't get that rhetoric, and I've got to be honest. It's like, again, it's like this is all about wealth preservation. No wonder we're trying to preserve our wealth as best as possible and trying to use every what we would call a legitimate way of tax minimization and tax efficiency. Why would you not do that? It's there. Oh, sorry, I'll notate that because I've got a moral obligation to pay more tax. Well, I know, just explained, I've paid enough.
Yeah.
No one gets the right to criticize me unless you're paying more tax than me. Let it put it that way. So if you're paying more than 300 grand a year in tax, then you come and have a go at me then.
And that's what you see quite a lot. And people are, let's tax the wealthy, let's tax the rich and things. But they don't actually look at the bigger picture and actually see how much tax they're paying. And you've put it out there before as well. Like they think, oh, but they do it through the company and then but then the company's still
paying the tax through the company, and we're employing people at the same time, and they're paying tax as well, and we're paying their pension, and we're paying employers' national insurance over and above the corporation tax. And let's be honest, the pension tax is a tax as well. It's another tax that we've got to pay, and we've got an increase in, every single year, more or less, because people just inflation and all the rest of it. It's like you can't just stay static, so you have to give that increase. So therefore, you've got another, what effectively is another tax, because inflation goes up. This is quite interesting because it's all about beating inflation as well. Let me give you a great example of this, about especially with property. I have a portfolio which was in our name. We have held it for roundabout, we bought some 25 years ago, we bought some 15 years ago. It balances it out. We bought them all about 20 years ago.
Right.
So in that, and I just did the sums today. So in that portfolio, when we transferred it to our company, this is where the capital gains comes in. We had to pay. But the portfolio we transferred to our company name, we then sold it to them. Therefore, it was sold at a market value. And therefore, we paid 178 grand in capital gains tax. However, I was interested to work out what did I buy it for and what did I sell it for and what percentage had it risen within that 20-year period. And it had gone up 106% in value. In other words, more than double in value. See what I said about property prices? They will increase. They will double every 15 to 20 years if you look at the numbers every single time. So doubled. So what was inflation at that time as well? 78%. So basically, I beat inflation with the property and a 28% increase over and above inflation. So that's a really good return. But more importantly as well, actually, I generated 2.2 million in rents at the same time over that 20-year period. 2.2 million pounds in rents. And that's not taking into account the 106% improvement. That's over and above. So therefore, I was able to service the debt and actually make a profit out of that as well.
Yeah.
To be honest, you know me, I don't actually look to make a profit in my portfolio. I'm not remotely interested in taking any money out. This is a family legacy fund, as I said before, and this is a generational wealth plan. It's not just for me. It's for, well, I don't really need it. It's for the generations to come, my kids. And my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren, my great-great-grandchildren. So Ben, Scott and Tony, you better hurry up and get some kids. I'll have to consider adopting.
Yeah, but then that's the whole thing of wealth preservation, because you want to make sure that that's solid and it's looked after so that it performs while you're long gone and not here.
Absolutely. The other thing I noticed as well is actually I looked at the rents 20 years ago. Now, this is where the lie comes in from the Scottish government. And yes, the Scottish government is lying to us about how rents are out of control and they're way beyond what they should be. Because I benchmarked my rents about when I had them, when I first bought them, compared to what the rents are now. Now, when I benchmarked my rents at where they are now to measure them against inflation, it worked out the average rent I had in 20 years ago was £407 per property.
So that was your average rent, right? Okay.
Yep. My average rent today, £532 per property. That's an increase of 30% over 20 years.
Should be a lot more.
I know, it should. Look at inflation, 78%. So if I had inflation applied to this and I had done inflation, thank goodness for rent controls.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to get inflation now.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to allow that to happen. So I'm always going to be inflation proof. So I'm going to get more rents than I've ever had before, if that's the case. See how the Scottish government shot themselves in the foot with rent controls. Yeah. So if I had inflation applied to this, my rents instead of £532 per month would be £725 per month from when I first started out. Yeah. I actually charged then 36% below what the rent should be.
Yeah.
So where's the argument from the Scottish government? We're overcharging everybody.
And do you know, Jim, you're not the only landlord that's in that situation. There's landlords with portfolios and things that are sometimes even less than that, and they've never done rent increases and things. So, yeah, I think that the Scottish government have they've rolled out these rent controls things, but they've not done they're not looking at the full picture or actually spoke to any like landlords about what their situation is. They've just made this decision from behind the desk. I think
it's a combination of they've found the data from the source that justifies their means.
Yeah.
Or what they want to say.
They're not looking at the broader spectrum.
Yeah. They basically went to a company called City Lets. The clues in the name, City Lets, not village or town lets included, which is the vast majority rather than city around Scotland, and actually just benchmark them. And it said, okay, all the prices are going up, and then they just applied it universally. But then they started it at 2016 because that's when it started to move up, because it had never moved up from all these years ago to 2016. So the 10 years before it hadn't really moved up at all. So they saw, oh, well, we better not include that. We'll just start it from 2016. And then we'll say that rents have gone up historically far too high and they've gone way beyond inflation. Mm-hmm. Well, they've not in the long term. I can guarantee you that. It'd be interesting if the Scottish government was listening, if the housing minister was listening and she was sitting there going, I better calculate this figure and see if he's actually right. But she won't, because she doesn't want to do that. No. They don't want to say they're wrong. And that's the thing. That's why landlords, and that's why property investors, and that's why people with ISAs, people with long-term investment plans, people with pensions, they work for it all their life. We want to have something to look forward to. Mm-hmm. We've had delayed gratification all these years. We've taken risks all these years. Business owners as well. We've taken all these risks over all these years. And even people that are employed, they put money into their pension, they put money into their ISAs, they put money into all the different things in order to get a decent return. And yet the government still wants to take. And there seems to be this rhetoric. It's like, let's eat the rich.
Yeah. And there could be an argument where it's like, well, if you're going to do investment and property investment or any kind of investment vehicle, you should really mitigate and account for the impact of changes and challenges such as inflation and market risks and tax demands and all the rest of it. But then there's another argument that the current situation with the government, Scottish government, especially with buy-to-let investment and landlords and things, it's exceptional circumstances, really.
We're living we're living in times where it's justified, or where they think they want it to be justified, or they think it's okay to have a go at people that have actually built wealth.
Mm-hmm.
We live in that sort of times where people that don't have want what the people that have got,
but don't want to put the work in.
But they don't want to work for it. No, they just want it. It's like they just, oh, it's no fair. You've got all that. Life's not fair. Well, guess what? Life isn't fair.
No, it's not.
Life is never fair. You're dealt the hand you're dealt in the cards of life, and you just have to play that hand.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think? Where do you think I would have been if when I was homeless, unemployed? When I was homeless and unemployed, where do you think I'd been if I just pissed and moaned about it all the time?
Probably the same place.
Yeah, I wouldn't have gone any further forward. I'd just be blaming someone else for my misfortune. Oh, it's all their fault that I've gone to this. It's all their fault. It's not fair. It's all the state's fault. Yeah. It's everybody else's fault except mine.
Rather than taking responsibility and treading a different path.
Yeah, and I took responsibility. I just go, right, okay, let's formulate a plan. Let's get a house. I even got a council house and I had to hand it back because I couldn't afford to furnish it.
Mm-hmm.
I only had it 2 weeks. It was a 1-bedroom flat. And yet it had no carpet, so it was bare. And that's another thing, yeah? Landlords put carpets down, they put curtains up, and they decorate rooms. What I got for the council was bare floorboards, a kitchen, it wasn't really that great, and nothing else, no furnishings at all.
You're not far off a shell from a council as a council house, which is
effectively, yeah. And the wallpaper was ripped, so I would have had to decorate as well. So a private landlord provides something far superior to what a council housing provider provides.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, again, there's no comparison here, and everybody says, "Oh, but it's less rent." No wonder it's less rents. Mm-hmm. But as I said, I couldn't afford to keep it. I couldn't afford to furnish it, and I couldn't afford to heat it because at that time I was a student, and the rules at that time with the student, and it probably is now, is you're not available for work, so therefore you're not available to actually claim anything. You don't get local housing allowance. You don't get any help with benefits or anything like that. You don't get any help at all. You're on your own, mate.
Yeah,
that's it, and that's effectively how the system works. How is that fair?
And then just to kind of run back there, when you were looking at the differences between council or social housing or council housing and private rented housing, do you know the expectations far exceed, like people that rent privately, the expectation of, do you know, even response times for repairs, when things should be fixed, what kind of standard things should be handed over, and think it's completely different from what the council do, but literally we're doing the same thing. But private landlords are doing it at a better level, at a higher level.
Absolutely. So there's no surprise out there why private landlords and investors would want to preserve their wealth in some shape or form.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got here only 16% of UK adults rate themselves as highly knowledgeable about financial matters.
Mm-hmm.
That is no surprise. I know that. I was actually climbing a mountain recently, and I was with a group of people. And I was saying there was a young guy there, Ollie, he was 19 years old, and he wanted to go in to do economics. And I says, Ollie, if there's one thing you must do, it's actually understand finance. I know you're going to do economics, but you need to understand finance. And it's the same with Jeff. He's on the balance
sheet and things, yeah.
Jeff actually, you know, he's a high profile position on the rigs. He's got a huge responsibility for health and safety. So it obviously attracts a huge pay packet as well at the same time. But I says, Jeff, whatever you do, the basic understanding of finance is essential to everybody. It should be taught in primary, the basic understanding, and also mandatory in high school as well. Because if you don't understand your numbers, it doesn't matter how much money you've got, you'll probably end up losing the whole lot. Maybe that's what the master plan of the government is.
And I mean, I was never taught any of that in high school or anything, and it was only until I went to college later on in life and made the choice to go and study that. And you'd advised me, do you know, you need this, like you said, this basic knowledge of accounts and a balance sheet and things, and to go and study later on in life. And really, you think, God, you should have had this years ago.
So there's certain things that are put in place for wealth preservation, especially financial advisors. So you have financial advisors. You also have, it's different from mortgage brokers. Obviously, mortgage brokers are just specifically for houses to get a mortgage or buy to let. But financial advisors actually advise you in what sort of savings and investments you should be investing in. And after asking you relevant questions about possibly your risk, your attitude to risk. So, for example, if you're a low risk person, you'll probably end up investing in bonds, UK bonds. They've got a return, but they're not a fantastic return, and they'll go up and down depending on the state of the economy in terms of what you can sell them and buy them for, the bonds themselves. Because once they're issued, you can trade them. So that's the sort of thing. There's also gilts as well, UK gilts, and then you've got the middle of the road, which is potentially things like pensions and that. But then again, when you invest in pensions, you're getting your tax back to top it up to the lower rate threshold. And if you're a high rate payer, you'll get tax back on that. It'll be tax efficient. But you also there have an attitude to risk, whether you're going to risk category 1 or risk category 7, depending. I mean, even UK equities is classed as risk category 6, which is high risk.
Yeah, and then that's what I was going to say, because like when you think about that, like these low risk strategies, then you talk about pensions, and people might think, well, your pension is quite low risk. Well, technically, I mean,
depends what they're invested in.
Yeah, the companies that they're invested in, that's dependent on that. I mean, the UK equities one would be fairly quite a safe bet, but then they've got it at risk 6.
Yeah. So UK equities is like Glencore, which is exploration, Diageo, which is drinks. You've got Betfair, I think it is, or a gambling company in there. You've got BAT Industries, which is vapes and cigarettes. You've got healthcare, which is probably GlaxoSmithKline Beecham. These are all steady payers when it comes out to dividends.
They're not going to go anywhere. Yeah, they're not going to go away.
You class these people as blue chip stocks. That's what they're classed as. They're always there. I mean, supermarkets are kind of the same, blue chip as well. Marks and Spencer's, Sainsbury's, Tesco, all these different companies, they usually pay out a dividend every single year. So you find that the pension funds, quite a lot of pension funds, invest in these companies. They buy shares in these companies. So they're owned by quite a lot of pension funds, more than likely. Hence the reason the knock-on effect. So it's a classic example about the government comes along and says to the business, it's like, well, we're going to tax you more. And it's like, okay, there's ramifications there, because then you're taking more money out in tax. Therefore, you're leaving less money for the pensions. Therefore, people are getting less return on their investments. See how that works? So it's the going, we're not going to tax the people. It's like, well, you do, because you indirectly tax. You indirectly tax through petrol. You indirectly tax through vehicle excise. You'll indirectly tax through smoking, because there's on that as well. You'll indirectly tax on, did I say booze? Alcohol. Indirectly tax on that as well. Indirectly tax through VAT. That's indirect tax. And that all goes to the consumer. So to say there, we're not going to tax somebody's wages, it's like, yeah, you're not going to tax somebody's wages, but they're going to tax on everything you spend after that.
To buy some.
So you're getting taxed all the way through, right to the very bottom. I think I saw some picture at one point that says, when you put £1 in, by the time you've finished all the tax and you get out at the end, really, ultimately, you've probably got about 15 pence in savings.
That's crazy.
Yeah, because it's just taxed all the way through. And even when you die, you're taxed. Imagine being taxed for dying.
Yeah, I know.
That's mental. So there's no surprise that most people want to preserve their wealth, and a lot of people do want to pass on to their children. It's like, because they know they're going to have a more difficult time, depending on who's in power at that point in time. They want them to have a head start, the opportunities that they didn't have, and that's kind of how that works.
But I mean, obviously, like the inflation and tax and things. But then, what about? I mean, insurance. I mean, does insurance have a role to play in preserving your wealth? Does it protect your financial interests?
Well, before we come to that, let's talk about, you talked about inflation and the threat to your wealth.
All right, yeah.
You're absolutely right there. It does eat up your wealth when you look at these numbers there, because, I mean, over 20 years, 78% inflation means that if you're £1 20 years ago, to buy the same goods and services today is £1.78.
Yeah.
So whatever you bought, if you bought I don't know, if you bought, for example, these for £1, lozenges for coughs, probably here I've got one.
There'll be
if you bought them for £1 20 years ago, they, technically, if everything was equal, they would cost £1.78 to buy now. So you see how that eats at your money, because you've now got 78 pence more you're needing to pay to get the same thing.
And
so
if you
don't
a whole shopping list or whatever you do, yeah.
And if you think to yourself, you left that £1 and it never accrued any money on it, it never made any money on it, then that £1 would basically be worth 78 pence less. It would be worth a lot less.
It's technically eroded the value of it.
Absolutely. The value's been completely eroded, and now your wealth preservation is no longer there. This is why I love mortgages for interest only on buy to let, because it kind of works in the same principle. If you borrow 75,000 to buy a property, and the property is worth 150,000, when the property doubles in value in 20 years' time and makes another 150 grand, your mortgage is still 75 grand.
Yeah, it's still the lower value, the lower amount.
So effectively, you paid the interest on it, which usually turns out to be almost equivalent to what the inflation is, or just above it. So the bank's getting a wee cut and getting a return on their money, and then they're passing it on to the consumer at a lower rate. Obviously, if you've got your savings in a bank account, you get nothing. So the bank's making money on your money, and then you're making money on the bank's money when you come to investing. But you're actually leveraging it more to make more money, because you've got the full value of the property rather than just the full value of the mortgage to double. So that's why you'd want to have your portfolio hedged against inflation, which it generally is over the long term.
Yeah.
And then again, when we come to the tax element, the tax efficiency you were saying, it can mean that you preserve more wealth and may allow you to reach your financial goals sooner, which is effectively what happened for me. It was like, how quick could I get there? How quick could I be tax efficient? I mean, there's simple things to do before the end of the tax year, which is generally for most people, it's March the 31st. Then kind of about December, January, look at your accounts, where you are, see where you are right now, and you can forecast forward where your profit's going to be before the year end. And then if your profit's going to be quite high, and you know you're going to do repairs and improvements the following year quite early in, then why not bring them forward and do them now? So do them now, so it brings your tax bill down for that year. Now, all you're doing is delaying the tax element. All you're doing is delaying the tax. You're deferring it, that's all, because you're still going to make that profit, because the following year, what's going to happen is your repairs and improvements is going to be smaller. Because you've done it that year, you've brought them forward into this tax year. But at least you're not paying it out a year earlier than what you should have. And also, if you decide, you could decide, I tell you what, you might be a husband and wife team. You might think to yourself, I tell you what, we could both have personal allowances. So we've got salaries up to our personal allowance. And then we could both take our dividend amount up to the basic rate, which is, I think, 37,200 each. So you could both take dividends out for that level as well. And that'll be taxed at a marginal rate of, I think for now, it's 8.75, but it's going to go up by 2% next year. So it'll be 10.75 from then on for people that are getting dividends.
And these are all just really savvy ways of tax planning and or restructuring how you put your things through your books and things to make sure that you're as tax efficient as possible. And it's all perfectly above board, and there's nothing. That's not tax evasion, and
you'd be amazed. People do not, Richard, do not use their tax allowances every year. They're 12,500 or 12,500. No, they don't use up to it. You'd be amazed at how many people don't realise that you can take 25% of your pension, speak to a financial advisor, remember. You can draw that down straight away. You can take 25% out tax-free, And if you don't touch the taxable element, you can still continue to put the full amounts up to the full allowance of 60 grand every year in.
I didn't know that.
And yet you've drawn down your pension, the tax-free element, right out completely. It just means you don't get any benefit. If tax gets whacked on later on, and it's at a higher rate, then you're clearly obviously going to pay a lot more, because you could have got that bonus of getting that money off and 25% off before you actually got taxed with the tax, on the tax itself. I'm getting taxed on the taxed.
Yeah, but then this is where it comes in, like, just something like that. If you're speaking and seeking the right information for the right financial advisors who know about pensions and know about things, then you get the right advice, and you could be in a much better financial position.
Yeah. This is where you came with the bit about how could you preserve your wealth, and you talked about insurance, didn't you?
Yeah.
Why would you have insurance? Well, I had insurance of, I had a policy of 600,000. Was it 600,000 for Elaine? Yeah, because she owned some properties in her name. Yeah, she owned some properties in her name, and they were kind of borderline that you couldn't remortgage them yet, because the loan to value had increased beyond the 75%. So therefore, we couldn't get them into a limited company because of that. Therefore, we had to be stuck with them. And Section 24 was a problem, because you were getting nailed on it all the time at the higher rate. Before you even got the interest off, you were only getting tax credits against it, your interest payments, rather than actually a full deduction like a normal business gets, which is bizarre. Turns accountancy, it turns accounting convention on its head. Completely. It's like, why do we may as well just throw the standard statements of accounting practice out the window, if that's the case. But it's done. So we had that position. So I then thought to myself, if anything happens to Elaine, the mortgage is in her name. It's going to leave us in a difficult position, having to sell the property if anything happens to her. So I better just cover the mortgage as 600 grand. So we took out a policy for 600,000 over 10 years. Luckily, we've now moved them all. So I just cancel that policy now. You don't need to pay it for the rest of the years. You just cancel it. That's it, done.
But that's a good example of how insurance has obviously safeguarded you in that situation.
Of course, you never know what's going to happen, eh? Could you imagine if that happens then? Therefore, all these properties are then forced to be sold, because I'm not going to be able to remortgage them and get the money in the right position to be able to get that back out. It's going to put me in a difficult position.
Quite a lot of tenants, like people out of their homes.
Yeah, and that's the tenants that's affected as well. So it was right to do that at the time, and it cost £100 a month to do it, but it was worth it.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah.
So your other strategies as well is you can protect against things like, again, you can protect against inheritance tax, for example. So if you've got a portfolio and you've worked out if anything happens to you, because it's all in your name, and you've not got a spouse that you can just automatically pass it to, then, and you end up finding it's beyond the threshold of, I think it's something like you're allowed 320, check for yourselves, please. You're allowed 175 grand each for your house, for your main house, and then on top of that, you're allowed 325,000 each for just normal inheritance tax gain. So what do I mean by that? You can basically, if anything happens to you, you get 175,000 allowance against your own house, and then you get 325 after that. So if I've got a house at 175 grand, that's covered. And then if I've got assets minus liabilities of 500,000, then 325 is okay to be tax free, and then I get taxed inheritance tax on the 175 that's left.
Right.
Now, if I get taxed on the inheritance tax, we'll just say 40% for the sake of things. There is other things that you get, but this would keep me easy. That means 70 grand I would have to pay inheritance tax. Now, do I really want to sell some of my assets, chop down the tree that bears the fruit?
No.
Absolutely not. So I would then just get an insurance policy for 70 grand.
Yeah,
you might want to do it. I mean, you might want to forecast that it's going to go up in price in terms of the value over a period of time. And you might say, okay, I'm going to have a policy for maybe 10, 15, 20 years, and it could be 150,000. Because the gain might get more and more over these years. Therefore, I want to just cover myself with that as well. So you always want to do something that could minimize your position. Again, Your personal circumstances will be different from mine. Therefore, take financial advice from a qualified advisor.
On an individual basis.
This
Like,
is
what is
just
your
my
situation?
opinion.
Yeah.
This is just my opinion, that's all. So these are strategies to do that. You don't want to threaten your financial stability. I definitely think that's the case.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, you know, when you think about investing and investing to grow your wealth and things, obviously the idea of growing your wealth, that kind of might seem obvious, to invest and grow your wealth, but
yeah,
and we wouldn't invest in things that are like a portfolio strategy or things that actively kind of sought in the opposite direction. But to grow and invest is in just one or several specific investment strategies designed to kind of fulfill a particular need. Do you know, in this case, your growth strategy aims to build your wealth over the long term and maximize your options in life. And what I mean by options in life, and Jim, you've got quite a good few good examples of this, because you've invested so much in certain things successfully that your options in life have been opened up completely in terms of your healthcare and what you could do and see around the world and things, because you've built this this successful investment vehicle, basically, which is your buy-to-let portfolio, amongst other things. I think, no, you've got.
I've never really thought about it before, Richard, though. It's a kind of diversification, isn't it? It's like I've got multiple businesses. I've also got multiple properties. I've also got overseas properties. I've also got multiple. I've also got my pension as well. So it's kind of just, without knowing it, I've kind of spread my risk a wee bit. Yeah. So if one goes down, I've always got the other. One goes up, I've always got the. You know, it's just like, as one goes down, one goes up, and it all stays even and works out over a period of time. I mean, you want what you want to do with these things, and again, once you do them, you've got to check, because there could be potential exempt transfers under inheritance tax. It's when you give gifts to your children, then that goes into part of your tax bill. Let me just explain. If you're on your own, 325,000 you're up to, you don't own your own house, you just rent it. So you've only got a 325 allowance. If you give, for example, 400,000 to your children straight away, and just give that, then, well, actually 325, is it 325,000? No, because that will be the allowance, 400,000 straight away. You can check with your financial advisor. It means then you've given more than what the allowance is. Therefore, potentially that could be taken back in to a recalculation, if that makes sense, over a 7-year period. So there's a taper relief on potential exempt transfers. So it will be exempt after 7 years. If you don't die before then, it will get out the exemption process. But if you die within that period of time, you could be taxed on it, inheritance tax, but it will be tapered. In other words, maybe
so if you were 3 or 4 years in,
if you're 3 or 4 years in, then it'll probably be, I don't know, it could be 50% of the amount it should have been, because you're 3 or 4 years in. Again, potential exempt transfers, speak to a proper advisor about this. So just another way of doing it, just another way of helping out, but you have to make sure you speak to the right advisors to do it. Once they understand your needs, and they understand your time frames and what your risk is, and you're comfortable with, and how much loss you can bear, that's when they can give you the right advice. I'm not daft. I mean, when I went for my pension and we spoke, I went and saw somebody about it. I talked to them about it still, and I still talk about it to people now, and I still get educated from more and more people over time, and different strategies and different approaches. And I don't do them all, but I do some of them, and I think, yeah, that makes absolute sense for me. So I know it's right for me, but other people, it might not be right for them.
Yeah. And what's your, I mean, this is something that comes up when, I mean, I speak to a lot of investors and landlords and things, and if you're going to start investment strategies and things, there's a few things it depends on, and age is one thing. A lot of people think, oh, I'm too old to start doing things like that. And then obviously what kind of timescales you work with, and what's your attitude towards risk and how you deal with it, and ultimately what's your goals and things as well. But age is one that comes up quite a lot. And I would always say it's never too late. And when is the time? The time is now. That's what I would always advise people.
Well, the time was always yesterday. The best time to invest was yesterday. The next best time is now.
Yeah.
Because hindsight's a great thing.
And what would your advice be to, I mean, people of any age? If somebody was a wee bit, obviously feeling they were a wee bit too old, what would your advice be to that? To start investing?
Well, I would still invest.
Yeah, well, I know that. I just wanted to answer the question.
But if you, I mean, what is too old? When you think about it, I mean, I'm 59. It's like I would look back when I was about 20 and look at somebody that was 59 and think, you're on your way out. But nowadays, it's like, you know, somebody like me is 59 is like triathlete. So what does that tell you?
Yeah.
It's like I think I've got another 60 years left in me, possibly. Whether anybody believes that, I believe it.
Yeah, the age thing come up in a conversation I had recently with investors. Like they were mature in age, and they were worried about how they were going to be able to get funding, the buy-to-let funding and things as well. But I said there's still options out there. Obviously,
banks don't care anymore.
Yeah, well,
the banks don't care anymore, is because they know they've got their equity.
They would not get funding at all to do buy-to-let purchases. And I said, yeah, you will, of course you will.
Yeah, it used to be the case that they shied away from it, but because they couldn't get enough business and they need the business to go, therefore they relax the rules a bit and they become a bit more open to stress testing. So, you know, they're quite happy to put an amount aside. This is just me speaking in general context. To make sure to lend it to people at an older age. Because they know if they do a 50-50 with you, the property is not going to drop value in by 50% overnight or anything. But they know if you then, you know, you pass away and you've got nobody to send it to, they can just sell the property and get their money back.
Yeah, and although we see quite a lot of new investors coming in, like young, enthusiastic people, you know, their 20s, their 30s, their 40s.
Yeah,
there's still a place for people in their 50s and their 60s, especially if you've got money sitting in the bank and you know, you've still got 10, 20 years at least.
Well, the average age for a man is 55. Is 77. Average age for a woman is about 80. So when you think about the logic of that, there's a good 20 years there probably.
Yeah.
And I've just explained to everybody, it's like in the last 20 years, I've gone up 106%, but I've actually made 2.2 million just with this amount of portfolio. So could you imagine if you actually invested with no mortgages, you've earned an income of 2.2 million over the 20 years. That's all right.
Yeah, and the likelihood is as well, if it's a more mature person or couple and things, and they've possibly, I don't know, sold and downsized and have a lot of equity, and they think, well, rather than just leave it to your family, invest it and set up something for them to benefit from well past the end of their life.
Well, that's also the advent of limited companies and then having different levels of shareholding in it. So that maybe their grandchildren or their children have non-voting rights on shares, different class of shares, but they can then give them a dividend out of that company, and they can forgo their dividend because they're in a different class of shares. So they could give them the dividend and actually but still retain ownership of the company and the wealth itself, but they can pay out the dividend to their younger generation.
Yeah, and that's a really good strategy to have set up. And I think anybody that's got children and want to leave something should really look into this kind of setup, because it is really good. And I know that's obviously what you've looked at in terms of your portfolio and things, Jim, as well.
Put it this way, just to finish off here.
Yeah.
There definitely is a place for everybody to invest. There's definitely an opportunity for everybody to invest. You just need to make sure you make it clear what your attitude is towards risk, and also how much you've got to invest, and a financial advisor can walk you through that quite comfortably.
And what do you actually want to achieve? And what is your goal?
Yeah, is it capital first? Is it income every month, or is it capital and income? A bit of both. These are all different things you think. Is it a legacy you want to leave? Do you want to create a fund? All these different things. It's based on your desires, and then somebody out there is going to have that answer for you.
Yeah, definitely. Wealth preservation, it's definitely a key thing. If you've got money and you're investing it, you want to protect it for the future, not just for yourself, but for whoever you're going to leave that for, and that might be obviously your family and things. So yeah, definitely wealth preservation. But the key there, Jim, like you said, speak to the professionals, financial advisors, mortgage advisors, who know what they're talking about, and could guide you in the right direction to use your money. Well,
just debatable. I've yet to
reputable
find a
ones,
financial advisor that knows more than me about
vitality and things. Yeah,
about creating the wealth. But
yeah.
they're restricted. The thing is, I think it's more about getting the education yourself and educating yourself as much as possible before making a proper decision. Because financial advisors they're all restricted by the government's, the Financial Conduct Authority's regulations.
Yeah.
So they can only ask you certain things. They can only point in the right directions based on what the answers you're giving them, based on the prescribed format they've been given for the Financial Conduct Authority. When you're more knowledgeable and experienced and you have more expertise because you've learned all that, that probably empowers you a lot more to make more decisions based on what you want to achieve.
Your knowledge of how things work.
It's kind of in control. It's the difference between working for someone else and being your own boss. I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. Right, okay, we'll wrap it up there today. That was wealth preservation, guys. Thanks for tuning in, and you will catch us again as usual, 12:30 Mondays, and we'll see you then.
Bye for now.